And welcome back. Let's focus on a very special guest now, Mr. From Deloitte. We have a very special guest now with us. Partner at Deloitte is now with us, and they have written a report regarding banking fraud survey in India. So let me just first go to our guest. Sir, if you could just first start by telling us a few things that avenues of taking loan have become easy. Avenue from all banking aspects have become easy. I don't last remember when I went to my bank on a physical transaction basis. Can you just tell us that what all of this means for fraud, and then we can take what the survey is actually telling us?
Sure. See, what we need to take into cognizance is the fact that in the last 2 years, the digital transactions have actually picked up because of COVID or lockdown, whatever you'd like to call it. What also has happened is that significantly the banks have also introduced new channels and new products which are more digitally enabled. This pandemic has actually resulted in significant changes in the organization and the operational functioning of a lot of the banks. So this actually leads to a number of should I say as changes at the front end, which probably may not have resulted in the actual changes that is required at the back end or at the technology system level. So these, I believe, would have actually probably created certain avenues where probably fraudster can or a person can misuse those control weaknesses that may have emerged.
Right. So can you just talk to us about this report first? Banking Fraud Survey India, Banking Fraud Risk Survey.
So we have been undertaking this India Banking Fraud Survey for the last almost a decade now. So in fact, this is in its fourth edition as we speak. And what we have been trying to do over the last few years is we have been trying to understand what are the key issues that the banking sector faces, what are the types of frauds that the banks are encountering, what are the key measures and controls and fraud risk management strategy that the banks are employing? Are they working, not working? And probably what they should be looking to do in the near future, given their perspective on what's happening, what they expect to happen in the near future, and what mitigation measures they need to take. And this is something we have been continuing. And if you look at our report, you will see the trend over the last report that we have over the last decade in terms of the evolving nature of the fraud that's happening and how banks are actually evolved their strategies as well. If I can take a moment probably to dwell a little more into the findings, what we are seeing is a significant change in the nature of frauds that we are seeing. So if I look back over a decade back, or while even a decade about from 2015, we did not have any issues related to technology or cyber related frauds, which was mentioned by the bankers in some of their top major area of concerns. This started slowly emerging in 2017 when cyber crime, ATM skimming, and debit card and credit card fraud, phishing, wishing started coming up as new areas of concern. Interestingly, in this survey, nearly 40% of the issues are actually cited which can be attributed to these issues. So while the traditional issues like loan frauds related to siphoning of funds, overvaluation, undervaluation of collateral, or probably the financial statement or misstatements, these continue to persist, but these new frauds appear to be the new emergent risk for the banks currently and probably going forward as well, with 78% of them saying that the frauds will continue to rise in the next 2 years as well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Karthik. So now if your respondents are expecting frauds to rise, are your findings going into at all on what kind? We've been hearing about, how the pandemic has turned out to be a hacker's delight as well. So, cybercrime, we don't have laws that are keeping pace also with the times at the moment.
Yep. Yeah. So what has happened is this increased use of these digital channels for transaction by customer on one hand has actually contributed to the ease of and the speed of transactions. However, these innovations could possibly have also introduced new vulnerabilities and complexities into the overall fraud management, risk management ecosystem. For example, the continued adoption of web, mobile, or cloud and social media technologies has increased opportunities for attackers. Similarly, the waves of outsourcing, offshoring, and third-party contracting, driven by probably cost reduction objectives, may have probably further diluted the institutional control over the IT system and the access points which probably these fraudsters may be exploiting, which actually brings back to an very important point. While so many changes have been deployed, have they actually been assessed for their vulnerability to fraud? And that is where our survey also highlights, because when we look at it, we find that nearly half the respondents do not undertake a fraud risk assessment every year. In fact, more than 50% of them said that they don't do it every year. So with such rapid changes that is happening in the ecosystem, and within your organization in terms of the changes that you have introduced. So if you don't know your risk and vulnerabilities, how can your fraud risk management strategy be effective? That's the big question that is coming up from this survey.
The survey finds that only, and I've now got it here, 50% of the respondents said they conduct a fraud risk assessment only once in 2 to 3 years, and stresses on the need are far more frequent risk assessments to tackle raising frauds. Mr. Karthik, at one level, one has to wonder, like 2 to 3 years you're doing a risk assessment, then that is up to the financial institution, the fintech, the bank that is needs to get its act together, right?
That's correct. That's correct. So that's what we are actually propagating as well. So if in the last 2 years, if you have undertaken such significant changes to your systems, you have introduced new products, new channels, new technologies, if you have not assessed the vulnerability of these new products and technologies to the risk assessment, how will you know that the controls that you have put into place is effective or not? And that is why with these rapid changes, we believe that you need to have probably more frequent one, probably once in a year, for you to identify your vulnerabilities. Because it's like otherwise what we call it as a classic case. If you don't know your risk, it doesn't matter what you put into place because you would know how effective it is, right?
Sir,
Yeah, please.
Sir, do you think that customer education is a very important part of this as well? And that is something which individual banks need to focus on?
Yes, and that's true to some extent. That's true because especially when we are talking about some technology-related frauds or cyber-related frauds, where people have had issues related to sharing of passwords and other things, the awareness of the customer or the customer education program is important part, and then the banks are doing that as much as they can to educate the customers in terms of how they should avoid the pitfalls of sharing of password or phishing emails or messages that come in. That is the duty or obligation on the customers as well to be vigilant. But having said that, it is also important that the banks will have to put into place certain controls which will actually minimize the occurrence of such issues as much as possible, and probably identify exceptions if they occur because of let's say a phishing or wishing, and take action appropriately. So technically speaking, this age-old way of saying prevention, detection, and respond mechanism is not necessarily true for a cyber-related incident. In fact, when we talk about fraud, it's like a cat and mouse game, right? You try to put in controls, the others will try to find loopholes into it and break in. And this will continue to happen. You need to be on top of the game. So you need to have in place controls which can not only prevent from happening, you need to be secure. You need to create an environment as much as secure. you need to be vigilant for intrusions that happen. And obviously, your systems need to be resilient in case a major incident occurs so that you can get back up and running within a matter of time.
Taking out time for us, always good to get perspective. And when the 5th edition will come, I hope you will take out time for our viewers and join us once again whenever you have new data to share with our viewers. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.